In 1843, when the Danish naturalist Peter Lund ventured into the limestone caves of Lagoa Santa in southeastern Brazil, he could not have imagined that the bones he unearthed would spark one of the longest debates in American archaeology. The skulls he examined did not resemble those of recent indigenous Brazilians. Their broad faces, low foreheads, and unique cranial forms suggested something older, stranger, an ancestry unlike what scholars had seen before. More than a century later, advances in imaging technology and genetic science confirmed Lund's suspicion. The Lagoa Santa crania were fundamentally different from later Native Americans, pointing to a profound realization. South America was not settled by one homogeneous migration, but by multiple streams of people, whose diversity still echoes in the bones of its earliest inhabitants. Among the most famous of these remains is Luzia, a delicate woman who lived roughly 11,000 years ago. Standing just 1.5 meters tall, her lightly built skeleton contrasted sharply with later, more robust populations. Yet her skull was striking. Low forehead, wide face, projecting jaw, features that set her apart from later Native Americans with their narrower, higher vaulted skulls. Luzia embodies what anthropologists call the Paleoamerican morphology. Archaeological digs at sites such as Lagoa Santa revealed not only thousands of bones, but also extraordinary burial practices. Some skeletons were intact, while others were dismembered, bundled, even combined with the bones of multiple individuals. These changing funerary traditions suggest that Lagoa Santa was not home to a single culture, but a succession of distinct peoples, each with their own ways of life and death. When researchers applied 3D geometric morphometrics to these skulls, the results were startling. The Paleoamerican crania did not cluster with later South American populations. Instead, they showed affinities with Upper Paleolithic Eurasians, and even with Australasian and Polynesian groups. This was not the signature of a single founding lineage. It suggested at least two distinct migrations. An early Paleoamerican wave with generalized morphology. A later influx bearing East Asian-derived traits, which became dominant among most indigenous peoples today. Genetic studies strengthened this view. In some Amazonian populations, scientists detected traces of an enigmatic population Y, with links to Australasia. The cranial evidence from Lagoa Santa echoed this mystery, morphology that paralleled genetic signals far outside the Americas. Even burial practices deepened the puzzle. At Lagoa Santa, three phases appeared: early intact burials, then deliberate dismemberment and burning, and finally bundled deposits in shallow pits. Such dramatic shifts hint not just at cultural change but at population turnover, with new groups arriving, bringing new customs. Though ancient DNA from Lagoa Santa is scarce, broader genomic studies show that all Native Americans descend from Northeast Asians who crossed Beringia at least 15,000 years ago. Yet the additional Australasian signals complicate the story. The bones of Lagoa Santa whisper of layered migrations, with different ancestries, morphologies, and cultural practices intertwining across millennia. Remarkably, traces of this early morphology may have survived until recently. Skulls of the Botocudo people in Brazil, who were exterminated during the colonial era, retain elements of the Paleoamerican form. This suggests that some lineages persisted on the margins, living alongside newer populations for thousands of years. The inhabitants of Lagoa Santa were small groups of hunter-gatherers, subsisting on fish, rodents, lizards, fruits, and carbohydrates that left them with frequent dental cavities. Their tools were simple. Only a handful of bonefish hooks have been recovered. These communities lived at the edge of survival, vulnerable to being replaced by later waves with stronger technologies or social structures. Taken together, the evidence transforms our understanding of the Americas' past. South America was not settled once, but many times. Each migration left its own imprint. Luzia and the Paleoamericans with their broad faces, The later East Asian-derived groups with narrower skulls, and perhaps others still hidden in the archaeological record. The caves of Lagoa Santa remain a haunting archive of this layered history. Their silent bones remind us that the peopling of the Americas was never a single story. It was a chorus of migrations, a human symphony with voices that still echo across time.